Welcome. My name is Bob Leventhal, and I'm a leadership specialist at United Synagogue, and our discussion today is about baby boomer engagement strategies. Membership engagement is one of the most important topics we hear about wherever we go. How do we engage our members? How do we motivate them to step in, to participate, or even to lead, to be more involved? And it's part of a larger discussion about making sure that people have a home, find their place. They may belong to the synagogue generally, but they need to find their own friendship groups, their own niche, their interest or affinity group, whether they're new members, young families, 35 to 45-year-olds, parents of teens, seniors, whatever. And one of the largest segments we have is baby boomers, which I'm defining here as between 55 and 70 plus. I'm 67, so I feel quite focused on this topic. I'm living it, and I want to share sort of what we think about, what we've learned about baby boomer engagement, and a little bit about the journey, the campaign to create an engagement approach. So why worry about baby boomer engagement? Many baby boomers are connected to the synagogue and other families through their kids. When the kids are no longer in the home, empty nesters may find they have a weaker connection. There's a life cycle change. There's a journey out. And the easy way to connect around kids' events isn't there. What takes its place? How do we get a stronger connection when the old ways we connected are changing? And we're in a world where just members in general are shopping around. We know that people don't go to the same synagogue their parents did the way they used to. They may switch denominations. They may go where it's convenient or where they like the school or where they like the rabbi and cross denominational boundaries. And that same kind of entrepreneurship, that same capacity happens to your members at the baby boomer stage. And that's what the research from UJA Synergy and the Baby Boom Research Group, they find that these baby boomers are looking at classes and courses beyond their home synagogue. They're not just waiting for your adult education program to take a course in history or to pursue some other activity. They're choosing to volunteer outside the Jewish institutions, whether it's some kind of a social justice initiative or something that's in the general community. Why? Because they're looking for projects that interest them or that are suited to their talents. And some of these nonprofits are very strong in cultivating and welcoming new volunteers in ways that some of their synagogues may not. A lot of synagogues take volunteers for granted. They don't make sure that the job opportunities are clear. They don't have information about who is volunteering and make sure it's a good fit. It's sort of like we need some hands here. But other institutions are more savvy and they are competing for our members. And while many of their needs may be changing, one thing that is consistent, the kinds of things that help people age through the baby boomer years and beyond are rich and rewarding relationships. Rich and rewarding relationships. The research on successful living is all about that. Should synagogues be places where we can have rich and rewarding relationships? Sure. But how many people have been to an adult education program that when it was over, no one stopped to talk to you? Or you were actually participating and no one asked your name? Or over months, you never really connected with people. Oftentimes, these adult education programs are all about the importance of relationships, except for the relationships that are happening all around us. So the research is that relationships matter, but not all our programming is relationship focused. In fact, we offer at USCJ an assessment for you to take a look at how relational your programs are. Later on today, we'll talk about a new program that we have called Sulam for Purposeful Living. It doesn't just intellectualize about the research on relationship. Session by session, it works to help participants build these relationships. because that's a marketable difference. That's a compelling business proposition. If synagogues can't be in the relationship business, what business are they in? But there's hope. So we know from this research that certain values are the friend of the baby boomer traveling the road ahead. Gratitude, openness, a hopeful orientation to the future, resilience. And if we're smart, we'll build these qualities into our baby boomer engagement approaches. We'll build them in. Sulam for Purposeful Living has a whole session talking about what values do we need for the road ahead. We need to strengthen health and flexibility. Baby boomers need to create an environment to promote emotional and physical health. Not just physical health, which is, as you get older, you have more prescriptions and more visits to the doctor, but also emotional health. How are you dealing with your family, your grown children, aging parents? How are you dealing with your friendship circles as they change? How does the synagogue help strengthen that? Are we a player? The kind of engagement that builds healthy, powerful relationships, though, is not tensionless. Judaism is not tensionless. Synagogues are not tensionless because there's other people there. But synagogue leaders can create a trusting environment of a sacred community for relationships to evolve. Engagement may stir some emotions, but it increases flexibility to manage them. That's Judaism right there. So the question is, are we in that business? Are we in the business of increasing the flexibility to manage whatever life sends on the road ahead? There's a large literature that talks about the excitement and opportunity of people as they get ready to retire, or they begin to scale back on their work, or they begin to carve out new opportunities within their work, to have what they call the bonus decades. The bonus decades beyond midlife mark an extraordinary coming together of experience, perspective, motivation, capacity, and the time to do something with it all. Our baby boomers have more time and more money than our young families, but we've also often not invested enough in them. We've not invested enough to take advantage of the big shift that's ahead, because we're living in a world, because of science and medicine and lifestyle, where these next years can be very powerful and fruitful. Will the synagogue be tuned in? Will they be helping us make these shifts? Yeah. In my view, we are aware of these baby boomer trends. Baby boomers themselves bring many life experiences to whatever this work is. So we're there to create a range of programs for participants to explore these critical issues. For some, one of these next act roadmaps may emerge. Not for us to define what that is, not for us to try to anticipate or to guide, but we simply believe that by bringing people together socially, by connecting them around their interests, and be welcoming some of them to be intentional travelers on their next act roadmap, something great will emerge. Of that, we're quite hopeful. So let's think about this leadership issue called getting started. You agree with me that baby boomers are an opportunity. You're aware that the research is some of them are slipping out and may even become at risk of not retaining their membership. How do we go and begin to launch this campaign? Well, first, if anyone who's done anything with Sulam, you know we believe in leadership. Create a baby boomer engagement leadership team. I need some chairs. I need an engagement staff person, rabbi, educator, membership director, I don't know, somebody to help back this group up. Find 4 to 6 people who are connectors, know different segments of the baby boomer community, because we're going to need to gather information and gather souls to figure out what's possible. And look for some different skills. Maybe we need some people that can write and some people that can call and so forth. A leadership team, job one. Of course, you wouldn't create this team if you didn't believe there was an opportunity, and that baby boomer, the research suggests there's some specific opportunities. Once you buy in, then we just got to get organized. We need to generate some ideas, an initial topics list. Launch a listening campaign to generate initial topics. Invite possible small group leaders and our participants. Okay, there's some people that wanted to study Musar. Gather. There's some people that are part of caring community. Come together. There may be some people that read a book like Wise Aging who are further along, more like seniors closer to the older segment. Maybe they have something they want to talk about. Maybe there are people that are natural candidates to be in the USCJ Sulam for Purposeful Living. Maybe there are baby boomers that are episodic, but they're willing to get together in Elul and talk about the high holidays that are coming, and maybe even discuss what it was like to come out. Central Synagogue Reform in New York basically shared a list of sermons that were chosen from the clergy and made it a big discussion group. You know, they just picked 10 of them and put them out in front of people and let them engage. The bottom line is, at this stage, we don't have to be picking all the winners. We just need to get a list and begin to try something. Sometimes if we have a big list, the real question is, do we have 3 or 4 people that want to go? I can have a great idea, and if nobody's interested, I don't know that that's a winner right now. But the creativity is just to sort of get an initial list up and see who mobilizes around it. And then we got to be in the business of attracting people, which is different than simply creating great ideas. So I'm quoting here whenever you see page numbers. This is from the Ron Wolfson Relational Judaism Handbook, because it's full of concrete examples that I'm quoting. And I'm adding others that we know about. Matching events. Hold a program fair where some of those topics are available. I'm over here and I'm going to have a hiking group. Someone's over there and they want to do mahjong. Someone else here wants to go to a movie or be in a book group or be in a study certain Jewish text. I don't know. The whole goal is to just find people who want to gather others and let people see who signs up. Launch parties, often when many people are in the building. Consider holding the parties in people's homes. Just find out, get people together and see what they generate. Congregation-wide invites. Offer online and place informational sheets on seats in the sanctuary. We're all going to get together and we're going to explore some things. Maybe it's a high holiday Elul group. Maybe it's a book group. I leave that to your creativity, but we're searching high and low to see who's interested. Some congregations have had a thing called the Synagogue Engagement Group, which basically just says, do I have a handful of people that want to take a group, or do I have some people that want to give one? So sign up and see if they come together. The synagogue doesn't need to staff all those. They just need to nurture and support these attracting people initiatives. But again, a lot of them are self-organized, and if they take off, they take off. Practice active listening. So this is an example. How do we start a conversation? This comes from a Reformed synagogue called the Temple in Atlanta. When were you well served? What would you do if you had a group of 10 to join you? How can we add meaning to your major transition moments, like the loss of a parent, or your kids going off to school, or being a baby boomer generally, or thinking about retiring? If we ask any of these questions, people are going to be engaged in conversation. So if you have a gathering at people's home or in the synagogue that's sort of a catch-all, you could do worse than these questions. They're perfectly good questions, and they will stimulate a conversation. We're unleashing a lot of energy here. Okay, we're unleashing a lot of energy. In my experience, it takes some structural organizational support. So in a larger congregation, staff, volunteers support these tasks. We have a meeting, someone takes notes. We have to train some leaders about what we're trying to do in this campaign. Maybe there's a startup meeting. Maybe there's some training on facilitation. Depends on the scope of what you're trying to do. But there's definitely some getting organized meetings. There's the whole business of finding resources and curriculum. Sulam for Emerging Leaders, A Purposeful Living is one, but there are others. And the question is, where do we find these? Or in the case of Central Synagogue, it was the rabbi's sermons or other materials that are about. Providing publicity. So again, Wolfson wisely calls this out in his book by saying, if you want to launch this campaign, you need to be asking yourself, what support how committed are we to creating these affinity groups, and what are we prepared to do to help them? Another case example from the temple are creating questions around themes. I love this. I love these. A lot of times we get all caught up in like, what will people talk about when they gather at my home or gather in the synagogue? Sometimes just one great question can get 25, 30 people having a great discussion. Rosh Hashanah, what do you expect to give back? What brings life to your life for Hanukkah? How do you connect it to nature for Tu B'Shvat? And for Purim, when have we had our work turned on its head? When are we willing to turn things upside down? Great questions for baby boomers thinking about possibly a next direction, a next act. How much risk are they willing to take to welcome something that might emerge? Well, these are Jewish questions, and they're questions the synagogue should be raising. So lastly, I'm going to use the Sulam for Purposeful Living program as just a case study in one kind of affinity group building. This is one where, because it's a core program of USCJ, we have a turnkey curriculum. Everything you need to do to run those sessions for the lay facilitator and some Jewish program staff person, they're all there. So let's just simply take a look at what that journey looks like. The mission of Sulam for Purposeful Living is to engage baby boomers and help them reflect, re-energize, and reimagine their personal and communal life. Participants who go on this journey will be inspired by drawing from the deep waters of Jewish wisdom, their own life experience, to challenge themselves to review and find even more purpose in their relationships with family, friends, colleagues, and their synagogue communities. So in order for this mission to unfold, we have to have some goals. For individuals, great engagement. It's a great class. And to motivate the participants to commit to some purposeful next acts. We hope that we light them up a little bit. But for the group, to welcome groups' thoughts on how the synagogue can better engage baby boomers and our empty nesters. So in this sense, Sulam for Purposeful Living is different than, say, the movie group, because it's a leadership group. It's supposed to turn people on who can be the leadership and facilitators of many other possible baby boomer empty nester groups. So it's an engagement group in its own right, but it turns on a hinge by welcoming them to think about how they might give back. And we suggest some kind of a group project for the people that do it. The very first session, it's a winner. People map out where they've been and they look at the road ahead. Where do we need to run harder? Where can we pause and catch our breath? And we begin to welcome stories. All of these listening campaigns, like Sulam for Purposeful Living or others, start by listening to find out where people are. We offer a session on friendships. What are different levels of friendship? What does Judaism have to say about that? And now the basic question, what do we expect from your friends and what can they expect from us? And are you open to new friends knocking at the door? One of my members of my congregation, I was interviewing about all this, and they said, well, no, I'm 62. We've been here a long time. I'm really not looking for any new friends. And this person was a synagogue leader, and I said, if you're not looking for new friends, how does someone join this congregation and hope to be greeted, welcomed, and engaged? Sometimes we have to go beyond our comfort zone and be open to being a friend. So friendship for ourselves, but also friendship as a driver of congregational life. Meaningful work. What does the next chapter of our work entail? Do I want to renegotiate my role? What talents and passions might we bring to a second act? And what support do we need? My health. What needs urgent care? What can you teach others about living well? And how can the synagogue help us be more mindful of our health? Both obviously our body, just being thoughtful about lifestyle, but also just mindfulness and equanimity, the ability to chill out and to reduce stress in our life. What does Judaism have to say about that? The sandwich generation, learning to be a passenger in your children's car. You've got grown children. When you're driving around, if you need to slam your foot on the imaginary brake, knock yourself out, but you're in a world where they're empowered, and we're not going to be able to control or helicopter in on them. And remembering to honor your parents when life presents situations that aren't always lovable. And my sense is these two discussions have a lot in common. How we expect to be honored, how the boundary we place on ourselves with our children, and how we need to honor our parents and the boundaries we set for them. The lessons of this session cut both ways. And legacy. As we think about all these things at the stage of life that we're in, what is it we want to teach our children or our friends or our congregation? What is the ethical will or our living legacy that we want to bring forward? And how do we do some reflection about that? So we've given you an overview of the dynamics of baby boomers, that they're going through change, and they're going to change whether you change with them or not. They're in motion. And do you want to be tuned in and have the synagogue seem like a meaningful and central resource to them? And we looked at a series of steps that we defined: creating an engagement leadership team, doing a listening campaign, finding new interest topics and people to drive them, creating the training for these affinity and interest group leaders, programs like Sulam for Purposeful Living that have that training built in, providing support for the leadership, office staff or committed volunteers who help make all the wheels of administration and execution work, including a lot of data gathering that we need to be successful, and the ability to evaluate groups and adapt as necessary. So that's your checklist. If baby boomers are important, you ought to be thinking about how urgent it is and whether you need to launch a campaign. And if Sulam for Purposeful Living can be a helpful resource, let us know, because we'll be offering a program November 15th, 2018 in New York to train leaders. And with that, I thank you.